Well, hello, my friends, and happy Sunday to you. Look at this loveliness right here. I just love it. Here are the supplies that we'll be using today. I'm starting out on an 11 by 17 MDF board, and I have chosen some vintage wallpapers for the backgrounds and some neutrals for the backgrounds. Now, on my board here, I have sketched out my house with some charcoal just to get an idea of where everything's going to be so that I know where I'm going to be putting my papers, because I'm putting my papers in specific places. I've got the blue vintage wallpapers out towards the edges to represent the sky, and then I'll put in the neutrals to be the base of the house, and then we'll create the roof with some fun goodies in just a minute. But I'm putting everything down with my Liquitex matte medium, and I'm just kind of placing everything down in spots to build up the base of that house and to give it some interest. I'm leaving in some of the texture of the papers, but trying to smooth them out just a little bit, not too much. I love the texture. I love how it adds interest to the piece. Most of the papers that I'm using are part of Collage packs, and they will be listed on the blog, and then all of the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog is down below in the YouTube description box. So here is my roof, and I've just taken a regular piece of copy paper and cut it out into a triangle to fit. And now I'm going to take some washi tape that I've had in my bucket for a long time and just layer it up. I love how these layer. Because they are transparent, the layers below show through, so you can really create some fun interest with your washi tapes when you layer them. And this was a perfect technique, and I've wanted to do this for a while, but this was perfect for the roof. And it helped me use up all those tapes that I've been collecting for a while. A lot of these are Tim Holtz, and several of them are ones that I just purchased off of Amazon. And if I can find the links, I will, because they're so cute. All of them are just adorable. But I'm just layering, going off of the edge, and then we'll trim the edges to match the paper underneath. So now that I've trimmed everything, I'm going to put that down with some Liquitex matte medium. So I've got some gesso out, and I'm just going to kind of neutralize everything, give it that rustic, grungy feel, a little more texture, and just kind of push things back a little bit. I've got some Arteza paint now that I have watered down, and this is sky blue, and I am painting obviously the sky and the sides of the house, and I really watered down, and then picking that back up, and I will paint the bottom green where it would be grass basically. And I did have some technical difficulties here, so I apologize for the blurriness. I've grabbed some cold gray on my brayer and basically doing the same thing, going back over, just adding a little bit more grunge and texture and interest. And then now I've grabbed some Van Dyke brown, again watered down, just to give it that warmth, to give it that yummy, warm, grungy feel. I promise the blurriness is going to get better. And I'm just going to go over the entire piece and kind of layer this up a little bit to where I would naturally see some shadow and to add some depth. So I wanted a scutcheon plate, and I decided to make my own. I'm using the keys, stencil, and some modeling paste. I put that down on some brown cardstock and set that aside to dry, and then we'll come back and make it pretty in a minute once it's dry. I've got my window stencil out here, and I love using my stencils as I need them and thinking outside the box. So I didn't want the arch. So I taped off the top and stenciled it down, and then turned it over and used the bottom of the stencil for the top of the window. So I did the same thing with the door. I taped the door off because this is the large door stencil, and I needed it just a tiny bit smaller. I've got some Van Dyke brown here now, and I've put it down with my makeup sponge, and then I'm going back in with my finger in water to kind of really smudge it out, because I didn't want super crisp, clean lines. I wanted it to feel very grungy and kind of blur those lines a little bit. Well, as I was doing that, I blurred them too much, so I went back in and kind of repeated the process a little bit, but added a little bit more definition to the door. Now that that's dry, I'm covering this with gesso and gonna get that kind of primed, basically. Coming back in again with Van Dyke brown on my finger and just kind of smudging it around until I get the right color and depth that I want. So I've decided to zoom in so you could kind of see how pretty this looks. I've got some English red oxide out now and just kind of touching that here and there to give it a real rusty feel, and it just turned out beautifully. I love it. You don't see it much on the piece, but it adds a whole ton underneath the doorknob. It turned out beautiful. So this is a great technique to be able to use your stencils and modeling paste to create some fun elements. So now I'm going to just kind of start pulling everything together, giving my door a little bit of a turquoise hue. This is Lucas paint in teal. I'm going to add some highlights to my windows, and this is watered down gesso. Brought out my E6000 to glue this down because I want it to be nice and strong, because the doorknob's going to go on it. So E6000 will glue a small child to the wall. So I've got some vintage letters here that I'm going to cut out to create my love above the door, and I've got some bingo numbers for my door number. Putting all of that down with some matte medium. I cut out some vintage rulers to create the window frame and window box. I did paint in a chimney with some Van Dyke brown. And now I'm just going to, again, start pulling everything together. I'm going to shade absolutely everything with my General's charcoal pencil. It just adds definition, depth, and really defines your piece. So just continuing to shade. This original will be available in the shop. And so I'm shading around my escutcheon plate, and because it's raised, I couldn't get in there very well with my charcoal pencil. So Stabilo All Pencil to the rescue. It works wonderfully around textured raised areas. Adding my heart and my home to the chimney. Now I'm going to add flowers to the window boxes and to the green grass area. And I'm just using a combination of Lucas paints in oranges, reds, yellows, and some gesso. Just making dots, and then I'll add some green leaves, and basically the same process for the flowers down below. Super fun, easy project today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, like, all that good stuff, share the love. If you have any questions about today's project, don't hesitate to leave me a comment in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer any questions that you might have. The stencils that I used today will be on sale as well. I hope you stick around for the conversation at the end. It's a good one about what home means. It's different than you might think. So stick around for the conversation at the end. And I hope you enjoyed today's project, and I will see you next week. There she is, lovies. I am just so in love with her. Oh my goodness. Everything about it. I think it's the colors, the kind of grungy texture. I am so happy. It's so great. So I've got, I went over everything in the video, and most of the papers, I think there's a few that are not, but most of the papers are in a collage pack, and I'll have those listed. The washi tapes up here, oh God, I mean, just the knob, the turquoise color, it's so good. It says love here, and it says home up here with a heart. It's just so good. So, stencils that I used for this piece will be on sale this week. The window, the door, and the key. And this it turned out so fantastic. That kind of grungy texture. So good. got some vintage wallpapers in the background. It's just, everything just makes my heart happy. So this last week, our daughter was home for the week, and it just felt so, it just, when the kids go, you adjust and you do your thing, and then you come back. When they come back, it's like there's just so much life in the house. Whenever they're here, whichever one of the 6, when they come back with their families or by themselves or whatever, it's just, it does a mama heart good. And so we had our daughter home for the week, and it was just good. And I just started thinking about home and kind of what it meant to me, because I was like, it just felt so good to have her here. It just felt right. And I started thinking about home, and I thought about, my history with home. And as a kid, I didn't have a secure home life, and we moved around a lot. And over the years, as I've gone through divorce and different things like that, home has meant some different things for me. And so as I was thinking about it this week, I looked up my personality type, would look up the word home to get the actual description. But it was really awesome to get the description, because of course it's, what you would think, a place to live, a building. But then there were these other offshoots of home: shelter, a place where something flourishes or originates. And I just love that. A place where an object is kept. And then as a verb, it was something that we return to by instinct. And then a place of peace or grace. And I was like, oh yes, because over the years, home has meant many different things to me, and it's as we go through the seasons of our life, it changes. It just does. That's just how it is. But I wanted to think about what home meant to me, and how I knew I felt like I was home. And there were times and seasons in my life where I never really felt at home in any place that I was at. And I started to think about why that was. And when I start to think back about what home means to me, home means that peace and that grace, that shelter, that place where something flourishes. And then I really honestly, kind of came to the conclusion that home is obviously in my heart. And, you've heard that quote that you can, wherever you go, you create your own home, your own space, in your own time. And I just, this week, I'm just reflecting about home. And home for me is grace and love. And those are the things that I constantly go back to when I am home. And when I say when I am home, I don't mean like in a physical building. I mean at home inside my skin, at home in the situation or the season that I'm at. That kind of home, not the actual building, but the home. And the only time that I feel at home in my skin or in a season of life is when I constantly go back, and like it says, go back by instinct, a place where something originates. When I go back to grace and love, when I am working from those places in my life, grace and love, that's when I'm home. That's when I feel at peace. And so I don't know what season of life you are in. I know a lot of people are in transition that I talk to, and everything feels chaotic. But I want you to think about coming back home to you, to your heart, to your soul, to you, to feel at home in your skin, in no matter what season of life, whatever circumstance you're in. There are certain things that we can do to feel that peace and that grace and that comfort. even if we are in transition. And most of the time that happens for me when I am reflecting, when I'm journaling, when I have you can call it meditation, I'll call it prayer, you can call it whatever. When we get a chance to be quiet and we go back to gratitude, and we start in our journals, we're listing what we're grateful for. As soon as I do that, that peace, that grace, all of that comes, and then I feel home. I feel home in my heart, in my soul, in my skin. And I want you to feel at home in whatever situation you're in your skin. And that starts with gratitude. That starts with grace and peace and love. Love, love, love yourself. Give yourself grace. I say it all the time. I speak to myself. I am so hard on myself. I would never say the things that I say to myself to anybody else. When we can practice those things, then we can feel home in our own skin and in our seasons. That's all I have to say today, my loves. I hope your Sunday is awesome and restful, and that you are at home with who you are and in your skin, and have peace and grace surrounding you. All right, loves, have a wonderful Sunday, and I will see you next week.